last talk of the day. And we have an interesting one. We just chatted far too long before this of 10,000 things. So Tomislav Krizan is CEO and AI Ventures at Atomic Intelligence. And he's going to talk to us about a social approach using NLP, which means a lot of things to a lot of people. But he just told me he's going to cover something very fascinating. So
yeah.
Without further ado, no stress. You know, I didn't build you up at all here.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. First of all, I like to do all my talks based on why do we need to do something. Then later on, we'll see how to do this. Why should we focus on personalities of the person, of any person? I think that you recently saw what happened with the Cambridge Analytics and all related stories around it, and how it, how it all ended, well, let's say badly for researchers. You had a really good data set in the beginning, which was labeled by psychological researching team, which could help you with this kind of application. And why should we basically care about NLP and personality? So this would be my agenda. I'll talk a little bit about me, why I'm relevant for this one. I was born in the 70s. I started to work in a computer-related area in '84. It's a scary year if you know about 1984 and Clark. Later on started with a bunch of different things. This is my computer trajectory, but at the same time, I started with additional interest. And all of those led me as a geek to start interesting myself in personality. One of them is basically something like that. Am I relevant? The pure answer is yes or no, depending what you are looking. My core focus for personality detection is the high volume of the data which is coming. I worked previously for one of the analytics company for 10 years, where we grew that company from 8 people to 150, and I was director there for 10 years. 2/3 of the company were under me, and I needed constantly to hire new and, let's say, interesting people. And the best way to find people who will work as a group is if you are aligning their personality. Yes, their skill set matters, but to be honest, one of my friends, distant relatives, wanted to work with me, and we are really good friends in a personal life. And I didn't want to hire him because he's a lone wolf. He always got the straight A's in college. He was competing in computing Olympics and winning gold medals, but he's a loner. If you give him a task, he will do it, but he will not be able to do in a group. So if you want to go far, you need to have a group of people who are working together. That was my initial thing which led me to go into psychological research, even if I'm a geek and more technical than psychologically oriented. And besides that, the volume of the data now is so growing exponentially that you can learn a bunch about any person, even without meeting them. So this is some of the latest numbering that you just see how much the volume of the data is rising, how much of the people are connecting, what are the most connected platforms to talk, and also what kind of devices. For the last few years, mobile device is something which is growing in the volume of internet connectivities because they are becoming bigger, stronger, having more feature. Basically, today's smartphone is faster and more powerful than some PCs you had 3 or 4 years ago with computing power and everything you have in the background. So volume of the data is growing, but the difference of the data is also coming into action, which you can use in your day-to-day work. Besides all of those, for a hiring perspective, I had one additional startup which we created for lifelong learning. And personality was really good fit for it. Because if you are on learning and teaching aspect, if you have a group of people who are aligned with personality correctly, you'll get gamification mode between them, and they'll start competing and learning much faster, which proved quite effectively. If you have introverts, then it's a little bit different story. You need to communicate through them through digital technology rather than in person or something like that. So you need to convey your message to different type of the people based on their personality. Okay? So the volume, we already said, volume is growing. The channels are growing as well. Facebook is still #1. I'm not on it, so I still have some part of the life, but approximately 6 billion of people doesn't. And this all led to development of trait assessment for a bunch of different applications. So one of them started as a traditional theory with two different approaches. Either we do the questionnaires, so the last one, Eysenck personality questionnaire, or we do the big 5 categorization of any personality to see how they are behaving in a given situation. And I like always to use Dilbert in my presentation. This is one about personality, but this one is a little bit better, which tells that each personality is good fit for something else, even if you're doing in a hiring process. So if you ask too much, you want a lot of technical details, you are really good for engineering department. Or, in this case, this one who went and broke in the morgue and took a picture with a dead guy, he's a really good salesman. So you need to tailor out who can do what kind of, what line of the business as well. Is this working? Yeah. So this led to something called Ocean. Those big 5 elements or traits of any person. The good part here is that if you do the modeling of any person, you don't need to do this quite often. So it's almost like fire and forget. As soon as you do the personality of single entity, you do not need to repeat it because this is something which is hardly changed during the time. You can tweak it a little bit through the subdimension of those big 5 parts, but it's born out. So how you behave, it's from your early childhood. So it's even if you put a lot of emphasis of changing yourself, it will be hardly done. So let's say the most times you need to execute this kind of profile if you want to do the whole globe is for those 7 billion people. And that's it. When you are done, you have a set data set, and only for the newborns you need to repeat it later on. Well, Facebook already does it. So what does it mean, Ocean? Ocean has those 5 different letters inside of it. O like openness. How much are you intellectually challengeable? How much are you receptible to new things, and how you react? Do you have a focus? Are you jumping between different things, etc., etc.? So based on that, you can choose who will be what type of a team member when you're building team as well. When you have a conscience, how much, again, you are taking care about your work, if you're looking from the work perspective. Are you paying attention for the details, or you are just here to do something, you don't have the discipline, you are obsessive about some minute task, etc., etc. To be honest, none of those dimensions, either high or low in scores, are not bad. It's just the way how you tailor out your message later on when you communicate with those people. Extrovert, are you introvert or extrovert, depending on your scoring. Introvert likes more that you have a communication, not face-to-face, rather some through digital channels, emails, etc., etc. Extrovert like to come to the stage and start talking with the people and mingle out. So sociability, are you self-absorbed, etc., etc. Agreeableness, how much are you kind, helpful to others? How much do you want to help others in their day-to-day work? And this is a really important part. If you are building the team, you would like to have a set of people who can work together. My practice during the hiring would be to, when we start discussing about CVs and everything, etc., etc., to find 3 different things. Can you learn something new? Are you willing to learn something new? And based on all of this, and how will you fit with the rest of the team? I don't care about your previous knowledge. So if you have capability and you have will, you learn. So that's the only important part. Okay? And later on, neuroticism, how you are sensitive or nervous in a stressful situation. So not all people can handle the stress or behave as a top performer when there is a stress, so you need to know who will be the first to call if you have some kind of issues. So again, everything building about the teams, everything around emotional stability. But each of those, again, is divided in some, it does not work, in some of the subdimensions. One of the recent developer from MIT is a depression of the person, which can impact the team as whole. But due to just writing, if you look how the person is taking the picture, you can you can detect early that they have potential for depression in some situation, and you need to do something to prevent it, either through your interaction with those persons, etc., to help them overcome that one. And it's relatively recent paper by MIT, and they do quite a lot of it. Still, it's regarded as some privacy issue if you give this to your employer, if they see that you are potentially depressed. But again, it depends in which kind of environment do you work. So if you are in a small enclosed environment with teammates which are fighting with each by side, each on the same battlefront, let's call it like that, then you would like to know how to help your counterpart in the company. Again, even all of those fives have different views, depends from where we are looking. Are we looking from a brain perspective, so how the neurons are working? Are we looking from how you are achieving some business decision, how you score in each of those directions? But just to put additional emphasis, neither the low or high, it's important. It's just all of them are important, have the same level of importance, just help you to tailor out the team. And this is a big five. Besides that, there is additional trait theories or trait practice which you can do, and one of them is how it all started. Everything started from handwriting. About 10 days ago, this went a little bit further. They did AI on top of eye movement and found that in the 10 pictures you can deduce personality of the person from the eye itself, how it's moving and how it's shaping eyebrow and etc. So all of those will lead you to some conclusion which you can later on use. And this for handwriting, it will tell you if you are using large letters or small letters, what do you like to be noticed, showy, if you have those curly, if you use calligraphy even when you don't need to do it, show off, etc. So all of those tells you something about person which you are conveying. And all of this led to some other type of the personality assessments. One of the most used in any business is PI, or predictive index, which consists of 2 questions, and each of those questions have 80 sub-questions. One is how you see yourself, the first question, and 80 sub-questions, and the other one, what do you think how others see you, to just see how you are fit. And this is proven technology used for the last 80 years or something like that. And it really generates really good results, how to start talking with those people and for what kind of position are they really good in day-to-day job. And you'll get this kind of result where you score low, high, etc. It will tell you, beside those 3 graphs, you'll get about 3 pages of how to deal and how to talk with those persons, and how they will behave if they are on management position, and how they will behave if they are on developer position, etc. Quite helpful. Check it. I think that there are still a few free links where you can open and do the testing, and you'll see how much it helps when you see that this recognizes what you see your traits by yourself already. Basically, this is me, which tells that I'm a little bit extrovert and I have, let's call it a startup mind, and I don't like to work continuously on the same problem. So maybe it's not the best side that I'm not paying attention for the details, but yeah, at least the others who work with me knows this, and they can take part of the job on themselves. Okay, this is interesting, and it's done an NLP approach for personality on a Trump's inauguration speech. And he is a beautiful person, unless you do the same on his tweets. Completely opposite. So it means that he has a really beautiful person for his writer of the speech. So checking that can be also used for trying to see, do you have impersonation? This can be used as a footprint if you want to do any or fingerprint for any kind of certification during the courses, etc. Do the assessment prior and during, just to see are those aligning. If they are not aligning, you have somebody else taking the quiz or exam instead of it. And this is quite an issue in the US, how they are hiring a lot of remote workers, that somebody will come, do the quizzes and all the talks, and they hire it, and somebody else comes to work instead of it. So you have agency who are doing the hiring process instead of you. So they do all the talking, etc. So even made up completely CVs. So if you are not putting correct boundaries when you're hiring something, that could be a little bit an issue. Okay. So what this means if we start to apply Ocean or Big Five on top of some set of the social networks. We have a limited volume of the data. By volume, I mean in a single message, not in a platform itself. Tweets are short. Facebook posts can be longer, but depends who is writing. Still, a lot of information can be extracted through the likes, follow-ups, reshares, shares, etc., to see that kind of personality. What do you like, etc. So this is what Facebook likes. You saw that this polarization in personal opinions happening in the last 10 years. It's much more rapidly evolving, either in a left-wing radicalism or right-wing, well, left-wing or right-wing radicalism. Why? Because they are constantly feeding you with the content which aligns with your personality and with your desires. Why? Because they would like to keep you on a platform and earn some money on you. This was previously done in real life relatively slow. You would become extreme in your personality when you are older, either, again, left-wing or right-wing. Now it's much rapidly becoming extremism on both sides. Due to the enclosed environment, that people are not looking something outside their own container. So that's a little bit an issue now if you try to using this. So there are pros and cons for using personality in modeling. And this is the reason why some of them will be banned, but some of them, if you are applying them in a good practice, will be allowed to tailor up some of the solutions for the people. Okay, several studies show that if you have pointed out the significant correlation between personality and what you are talking. And Kosinski did that one. And majority of the personality modeling recently was done based on Kosinski's work, and even Cambridge Analytics. And you had that data set available until a few months ago when they needed to revoke all the access because of the Cambridge Analytics issues. Even Cambridge Analytics as a company was closed due to that. So now there are different ways how you can start modeling if you do not already have that data set as previously was publicly available. Some use cases for using personality traits in your day-to-day business. It's quite useful because if you tailor your message, it will be more receptive. And now you can use this either in your marketing campaign. If you focus on a specific group of the people who will be successful to that kind of messages, it will be more beneficial for those who are doing marketing activities, because this is one of the Nielsen studies which shows you that depending on the channel which you are pushing your message or marketing activities, return may be positive or negative. So in some of the cases, we are just having barely a return on every US dollar put in the marketing activity. But if you try to tailor out and combine it, you can get much better response. So one of the features which telcos and banks do is a churn prevention and retention of the persons. But again, as a part of retention is some of churn prevention is some retention policy where you need to allocate some funds and tailor out those to end user. If you do not tailor out correctly, you'll just throw the money. I think that some of you remember old quote from the Ford that he is spending 100% of the money on marketing activities. 50% of those are thrown away because he does not know how to spend it better. But the faulty part here is that he does not know which 50% is not the good 50%. Okay, so this is one example. The other example is gaining fanatical support in your user group. If you can attract the user that they become your promoters, especially nowadays when the social media is quite available and it's pushing the message instantly, and as soon as you start buying something, you will not call the company and ask them, is your product good? you will go online and see what other people are thinking about what they bought. So if you know how to tailor out and create a fanatical group of your followers, well, if you know what you are doing, this will just attract you additional business. So because word of mouth is something which is leading at the moment quite extensively. No marketing activities can compete with it. This is one example of the fanatical sport. So access to the channel of the client is not so much online because Twitter is offline. You call to ask what did happen in the moment. I already talked a little bit about churn, but this is what you can use to retain your customers. It's always more cost-effective to retain existing customer than to acquire new one. To be honest, it's more cost-effective to keep 3 of them than acquiring 1 new. So you need to focus on those customers or whatever you are using in your connection-based environment to focus on keeping that group together. And by tailoring either message or some promotions, if you are a public company or commercial company, this is what helps you with churn. The other one is potential for cross-sell, upsell. This is a famous case where Ocean, as such, as a personality trait, helped a streaming company, for media streaming company, to choose appropriate music which will be shown as a next recommendation for you. Because based on Ocean, again, we said those 5 traits, it depends how and what will you choose. Am I choosing by mood? Am I choosing by activity in the music? Or I'm choosing the music by genre itself? So each of the personality will choose differently. If you know the person, you know what to recommend. I'm not sure, did you have that kind of issue? But I had really lousy let's say, feedback from recommendation engines from some of the, not marketing, some stores, etc., etc. When they offer you to buy something, next time when you come in a store, and you get either coupon or discount or whatever, almost every time they missed. Why? Because besides what this is important, they use what they have on resale as a major feature, which is never something you would use in your driving perspective. So in this case, openness will drive you to choose the music by mood. If you are conscious, more conscious, it will lead you through activity. Or later on, neuroticism will drive you by genre. You'll stick to the single genre and you go through it. Now I think that I have 2 developer use cases. One of them should be matchmaking. So majority of the persons who go on matchmaking sites do tend to pretend a little bit different than what they are in real life. And as soon as they start applying those personality, they will create a matchmake. Yeah, unless you go, again, in a person, it will be completely disaster immediately in the first 5 minutes. Or additionally, recruitment process. As I already told you, this is something we are doing. They are now telling that it's a radical, it's untested, but this is what I like to do in my recruitment process. I like to find the persons who will fit the team that we can work together as a whole. I don't need a top performer which will be individual. I need a team who will be a top performer. Because there is old saying, if you want to do something fast, do it yourself. But if you want to go far, go with a team. So I hope that all of you want to go far, and fast and far, so fast and furious, yeah? Surround yourself by good team. So how did we do this kind of modeling? So I did it in a few companies for a few different cases. We do it also for commercial, for telcos, for banks, for their activities, for retaining as a part of the overall picture how they are using their call centers, how they use marketing channels, sales activities, etc., to have a picture as a whole. But let me tell you how we did it for one of the startups we are doing for lifelong learning. We started, well, this is just, do not try this at home unless you know what you are doing. The worst case, what can happen is that you may be embarrassed by your friend, and that's it. I would say play around with anything, you may only get the good results. What led us to this one? It's quite hard work. We did some hypotheses, we did some experimentation, measurements, testing and driving to see how they are fitting. But basically, we used a traditional CRISP methodology, which is for years in any data mining and machine learning projects applied. Try to go step by step to find what will fit and what can work. And this led to something which is currently in the third iteration. First version was based on Kinski work and all of those psychological researches and data sets which are already proved. You had one psychological database which was, I think it was published in '87. So 31 years ago, still relevant, a lot of good features still available. Linguistic inquiry together with the word counts. You have a few more recently added data sets which can help you with this. And we started to play around with SVMs, naive Bayes, KNNs, logical regression. It worked. We got the results. It was relatively fast. It's working, but now one of the colleagues asked to repeat the same process, and I can't give him the data set because I don't know where my original data set is. So we needed to go and build the next version. We started a little bit differently. We started to find different sets of the information. Now started a little bit with deep learning, where we got with the full connected neural networks. We went with convolutions. We went with RNNs to get some of the response. And this is additional data set which we brought in this one. James Penbaker and Laura, which we have good set of essay data set from the colleges in US. Helps a lot. And current version, which we are working on, is based on BERT. I'm not sure how many of you know what is BERT, but basically one of the Google research libraries recently came out, which helps a lot. It's a combination of a bunch of different deep learning methodologies inside of it, together with the classification, which help, and not just classification, but also standardization of the data, embeddings on the data on the beginning, two of them, either word2vec or glue. This is version 2, which we did. We started as pure convolution, where we said, put our word embeddings without using word2vec, because we didn't want to lose punctuations, smileys, etc., etc. Those gives a lot of feedback about your personality. Then started to do convolution to categorize words in sentences. Later on, we started to do additional pooling to sample down those sentences into documents. And then documents started to classify in those big 5 categories. And this categorization was done through the CNN, and it had really good results. But we wanted to start playing around with reinforced learning at that point, and we use RNN in parallel with multiple layer perception with, I think, 45. Later on, it was about 50 epochs of the pre-processing the data, just to have ensemble of those two as a final result. And now, it behaves really good. It has really good results, but we wanted to play around with the BERT. Why? Because we have it looks that we have some free time. Do we need it? No, but it's really nice to play. It's a Google research paper came out a few months ago. Recently, they announced a few updates on it. It has really good capability. It's already doing convolution. It's already doing reinforced learning. It's using long short-term memory in the background to help you with all of those in classification. You can do whatever you want. They already have test sets and examples how you can build your spam filter. I need to send this to my email host because they use it wrongly. I think that all my incoming mail are currently in the spam, so I'm not sure why. But yeah. And because we have a little bit more time, there is a different type of personality if we are talking about data scientists. So data science team has a different grouping. This is based on a traditional 10 questionnaire, 5 of them, 5 plus 5, which will tell you what kind of data scientist you are. It's a 4x4 matrix, which leads you in some direction. This second marked as a groundbreaker is something everybody considers as a real data scientist. But to be honest, when you start working, still you need engineer, still you need preparation, access to the data before you start doing any modeling. So Data scientist is not a single person. It's always the team who does the job. We did a real calculation to show that if you are calling yourself a data scientist, you need to have at least 24.6 years of 8 hours per day work experience on that field to have all 5 dimensions of which are needed per data science. And basically, that's it. So choose appropriate. If somebody wants to know more about data science questionnaires, I can send it. You can test yourself. But I'm done. Any questions? And I'm a little bit late.
Well, thank you very much. I think we're out of time.
Okay.
But Slido people can send you the questions that people might have.
Okay.
And then you can data mine them and do things with them and train them. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that insight. That's it. We're done for the day. We're done for the event. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you to all the speakers who actually answered your questions, gave presentations. Thanks for the organizers and the people outside. I might see you in Berlin. I live there, so it's easy for me. So maybe that's a good chance to come back to WeAreDevelopers, and if not, enjoy Vienna. If you're from here, meet me at the Christmas market, because Glühwein is out there, so that's a good thing. And I see you soon in Berlin. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.